find a top-notch university, you can be sure that the community it's located in is thriving. There's something about the partnerships universities build within their own region and beyond that contributes to that success. Deborah Buszard, Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Principal of UBC's Okanagan campus, shares her insight into our university's commitment to building on that tradition. Up next. Deborah, thank you for joining us today. It's always a pleasure having you talk to us about what's going on campus and outside of campus.
Well, it's a pleasure, as always, to be here because there's a lot going on.
Something that you've been very involved with over the last year is an initiative called the STAR program here. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So STAR is an acronym which is Survive and Thrive Applied Research. And it is the coming together of a group of researchers on our campus and a group of companies in the region, but also with international partners and with Imperial College London. And we have new technologies, new materials, which are designed really to help humans survive and thrive in challenging environments. The companies locally are interested in developing those technologies for new markets, and we have Faculty of Engineering, a Faculty of Health and Social Development, Management, who all found the idea of the challenge of helping a local company or local companies generate new products and ideas out of new materials to be very appealing. So what STAR will do will be to put our great researchers in contact with innovative companies, some of whom have large-scale international partners. And they will work on developing, from new materials and technologies, products that will help humans survive.
I think it's good if we talk about something called the Aspire initiative. Maybe you can tell us where we're at with that and what that's all about.
The Aspire initiative was actually run last year over a full year, and it was a visioning process. Now, there is a difference between visioning and planning. In the visioning process, what we wanted to do was to get people to start to think about what would we aspire to be in the longer term? What are our ambitions? When you ask people what they want to do in the short term, we tend to focus on the constraints and the issues. When we go a little bit further out, we can dream a bit bigger, and we don't worry so much about the short-term concerns of the government of the day or our current budget issue or, HR policies. We free ourselves to think a bit longer term. So that was what we ran last year. It was run in a very inclusive way and very much with our community partners. So we talked to the municipal councils, we talked to the business community, we talked to the not-for-profits, the school boards, Okanagan College, the Aboriginal communities around the region, and our colleagues in Vancouver about really what should this campus aspire to be as we grow. Because the first few years have been about building an establishment, and now that we've reached our funded target, it's time to say, okay, we're here now, this was what was planned for. What are the next steps and where are we going? Because the initial program was designed to establish a university campus here. And we need now to think, what does that mean in the long term?
Now, why go to the community? Why go to the governments? Why go to these other, stakeholders in a sense? Why is it important?
Because really universities are very much creatures of their environment and their ecosystem. So if you look at, for example, our Vancouver campus, it has very much grown to represent many of the things which are of importance, particularly in a coastal community in British Columbia. So there's a Faculty of Forestry, there's fisheries research, but we have something very unique, which is a new campus where we don't have a long history of areas of work. So as we're growing, we're finding out where are the places where we can have impact. And to do that, we really need to understand the ecosystem that we're in, the communities we serve. And already what you see here is that this campus is in fact developing very much in response to the Okanagan. We have the Southern Medical Program, something that just wasn't imagined when UBC first arrived here in 2005. We have an engineering faculty. Again, something that wasn't on the original books. So we need to look out there and see where those kinds of interests and opportunities will be arising.
And when you touched on the Southern Medical Program and the engineering faculty here, that's talking about the students and their opportunity through the Aspire initiative too, to see what their potential is and how they can work with the community and see opportunity.
Probably the largest single group of people to have input to the Aspire process was in fact our current students. They were very much involved in giving us a sense of what they would aspire for a program here to be like. And we heard very clearly from them that the things that they now value are that we offer an intimate learning environment. We offer very much what people call experiential learning, learning by doing, learning by being engaged with the community or in your profession, real hands-on opportunities. So we heard that loud and clear, and that's clearly informing how we see our next phase of development.
Was there anything that surprised you in the feedback that you got in the discussions that you had around the Aspire? Was there anything that said, that's interesting, we hadn't really thought that, but what an interesting vision to have?
To be honest, one of the things that I really was surprised by the engagement of the community. For example, we went out to speak to the municipal councils at council meetings. So there were, regular citizens and also the council, the municipalities, management people there, and the elected councillors and mayors. Firstly, I was surprised by how much they already value having UBC here, which was very heartening, but also by some of their, I thought, wonderful suggestions about, okay, what should we be doing next? And for example, there were people who were interested in us providing education and professional development for people learning to manage the ecosystem, the desert lake ecosystem that we have in the Okanagan. Now that's something that we hadn't really previously thought about, but it's an opportunity to provide professional programming that really helps meet the needs of the community.
So where are we at starting the groundwork for some of this feedback that you got in these aspirations?
So, aspirations are great, but you have to have a plan and a bit of a roadmap. So now we are into the planning stage, and what we are doing is around a variety of areas on the academic side, looking at, okay, what do we need to do now to move our programs in that direction? Where can we build up more opportunities for experiential learning in the community? How do we develop new programs that meet the recognized needs that we have here for professional development, for example? How can we contribute even more to economic and social development? And so those kinds of planning activities are going on. And of course, they're going along in parallel with campus physical planning, which was running in tandem with the Aspire process, and which is now moving into its last phase, which will help us think about what we need to build for this next phase of our development.
So how far along are we in that particular process? Do we see much more growth in the buildings and the land that we've got around us?
We're planning for 15 to 30 years out, so we must assume that if history tells us anything, it tells us that there will be growth in the community and that our campus will grow. And that there certainly is, we know there's demand for additional programming here. And there's strong demand and interest, for example, in additional health programming to be delivered in the region. We have to plan for that. And of course, we know already that we're quite constrained on this campus. We urgently need more library space. The library today is the same size that it was when it was built in 1993 for Okanagan University College, when it had 3,000 students.
Wow.
Today we have 8,500 students, most of whom are in programs where they really do need to use a research library. And so the demand is extraordinary. You know that our students recently committed themselves over the next decade. They will be contributing together $10 million to support the building of that new library. And we are now going to be fundraising for the other 2/3 of the cost of that library. Our hope is that we will be able to start building that in the near future. If we look out a little bit longer, we also see a need for increased space on campus for residences, because first-year students and international students really want to be able to live on campus. And we also need to anticipate a demand, for example, for more larger classrooms to accommodate larger classes, and also for more open study space. Because as we move to what people call flexible learning, where students are doing a lot of studying, not just listening to a professor talk, they're working as groups, they're working individually, they're using online materials, and we need to provide them space to be doing that. In the planning process, we have plans for the library extension. We have plans for a new residence, and we have plans for this, what we're going to call the Okanagan Commons, where we will have open study space, a large classroom, and a new cafeteria to serve the resident students. So that's being rolled out now as part of that campus visioning. And of course, we, in our master planning, have to think of how we integrate with the outside world. So we have a new roadway coming through on the west side of the campus, the connection to John Hindle Drive. We will need to think about how we reconfigure that. We'll probably see some more traffic coming around the campus. So there's a lot of planning going on. The open public consultations will be coming up early next year. And this will be a second round of consultations on that process.
And where does that usually take place? The public has an opportunity to input and hear what we're looking at and to give us some feedback?
That's right. So there was an early round for input to the concepts and the outline of the planning, and now the professionals have been working on trying to make it all fit and plan out, you know, if you like, decade by decade, where we may be going. And so they are going to be ready to present that out for feedback with a 3D model and you know, an outline of what's proposed, and get feedback from the city, from our Board of Governors, from the community on campus, etc.
Well, when you have so much input and a real sense of what people want, it's going to be a lot easier to know where we need to go and how to get there.
I think so. And you know, it's very interesting now, because I can only imagine how difficult it was to sit down at some point around 2004, 2005, and pretty much starting from scratch, invent the Okanagan campus. And I think we can be tremendously grateful to the designers and the architects and the academics who made the decisions, because we have a beautiful campus.
We do.
And we really want to make sure that as we build that, we keep the features that we all admire and enjoy, and that we make it a really livable, walkable, pleasant campus for people to learn and study on.
Deborah, we have run out of time, and I don't want to get into a whole bunch of new things, so would you mind coming back?
I would be more than happy to come back. You know, it's always a pleasure.
Great, thanks for coming. And that wraps it up for this edition of UBC's Next Big Thing.